All righty, let's test the audio before we start this business. Let's test audio. All right, we're good to go. Welcome back, everybody. What a week one. I got Oregon State and Boise on the TV, but we're here to talk about. I gotta take this out. I can't listen to myself. We're here to talk about Alabama and Utah State. The Crimson Tide knock off Utah State 55-0 in a game that might not even have been that close. What more is there to say? Utah State, to be fair, a lot of people are going to write this game off and go, it was just Utah State, whatever. Utah State won 10 games last year. They were a really good team, and they returned a quarterback. It just overmatched from the get-go. I mean, the only time they even looked in it was they held Alabama to a field goal on the first drive of the game. And then after that, touchdown, field goal, touchdown. And then the backups were in, and it didn't matter. Will Anderson for Heisman. He didn't have any sacks tonight, but he did have 4 tackles for a loss. He's just... Man, it's hard to fathom into words. Like, Aiden Hutchinson had an incredible year last year for Michigan. Will Anderson deserved to be in New York. That dude. Anyway, so Bryce Young, his return to his Heisman follow-up, looked solid tonight. He didn't have to do a whole heck of a lot. 18 for 28, 5 touchdowns, but only 195 yards. What was actually really impressive about Bryce Young tonight was he used his legs. He last year, if any of you were here last year when we did these, I was hammering it home like he needs to use his legs more. He, especially when things started to break down, there were times where he would look to he would wait too long to make a play. And play would blow up. It'd be an incomplete pass when he very easily could have gotten 8-9 yards. Doesn't need to be explosive runs like they were tonight, 5 carries for 100 yards. But just the ability to pick up a first down, it makes Alabama that much more dangerous. Receiving core looked good tonight. Again, the passing game, it's hard to talk about this game because everything went right for Alabama. Defense got a shutout. Offense scored points every drive. Just an impressive showing before they head to Texas next week. And I just got the alert on my phone. College Game Day will be there. But the main thing I wanted to talk about was the running game. Again, last year, if you were here a lot, if you hear something, that's my dog just playing with caps or something. I don't know. Last year with the running game, Brian Robinson is a good running back. He's in the NFL, obviously, and hope to God he gets better. But he wasn't Derrick Henry or Najee Harris or what are you doing? Some of these other guys that we've seen in Alabama over the years. And the running game struggled because of it at times, even in games against like Southern Miss. They were only going for like 4 yards a carry, and there was nothing explosive in the run game. Now, a lot of that's not on Brian Robinson. A lot of that is on the O-line just wasn't very good last year. They got it together tonight. Jahmyr Gibbs had this goofy dog had an explosive 58-yard run. Bryce Young had a couple of explosive runs. the running game looked good tonight. The O-line looked much better. Again, it's Utah State, but this team was taking – I keep bringing up the Southern Miss game. They were taking on water against Southern Miss. So to see that – this dog cracks me up – was impressive from them tonight. And then, Utah State, whatever. It's hard to shut out anybody in college football. You can look at any team out there today. I mean, how many teams are playing low-level teams that didn't get shutouts? And on top of that, they're playing Utah State, who won 11 games last year, finished ranked 24th, and returned their quarterback, who threw for 36 touchdowns, and just hammered them tonight. They hammered them. 2021 Utah State was a really good Mountain West team. They went to Washington State and won. They hung with BYU, who was a really good team last year. They beat up on San Diego State. They beat Oregon State in a bowl game. Obviously not Alabama levels of competition, but they acquitted themselves well against Power 5 teams and BYU, who is going to be Power 5 and basically has been Power 5, kind of like Notre Dame. So it was a good team coming into Bryant-Denny, and Alabama was able to control the clock, control the game, did exactly what they wanted to do. They didn't have to show anything on film. They didn't have to show anything really on defense. Defense was pretty vanilla, and they still managed to get the shutout. So all in all, good game, but provide me with your guys' thoughts, opinions on this game. We'll talk about this game for a little bit, not a ton to talk about, just because of the nature of it being, 55-0. I didn't really get to do an Alabama preview, so we might talk about their chances this season upcoming, especially now that we have a week in and a lot of these teams have played. But this is Alabama Postgame at the Voice of College Football. You can subscribe to our Alabama channel, Voice of College Football. Subscribe to our SEC channel at the Voice of College Football. Subscribe to the main channel. Mark Rogers does a lot of work for you wonderful people. He knows what he's talking about, and it's completely unbiased opinion. Join our call-in show. There's so many things that this channel does and so many people that put in a lot of hard work that give it a listen. We're not ESPN. We're not Fox. We're not whoever. We provide our own people that give great commentary, who have a lot of passion for the sport, and we like talking to you guys. I'm thankful I get to do this again for another year. It was a blast to do last year, even though you guys got a little rowdy in some of these games. But things change over the course of a year. Impressive showings by Georgia today, an impressive showing by Alabama today. Probably can go ahead and skip to the rematch come December. But we'll talk about all that here in a second. So, for those of you that watched tonight's game in Tuscaloosa, drop a comment, like the video, subscribe. What did you think of Alabama's performance tonight? I thought defensively, there's no such thing. Here, let me rephrase. There's no such thing as a perfect performance, because you're not going to hold a team to 0 yards. You're not going to hold a team to – you're not going to get a touchdown or whatever every play. But that was a pretty close. Held Utah State to 136 total yards, 57 yards passing, 79 yards rushing, only 6 penalties, which for the first game of the year, I mean, if you watched any of the other games today, there was some jumpiness. Main example I think of is Cincinnati. Luke Fickell's a hell of a coach, but that team was just lining up wrong, false starts, holdings, a lot of issues. So it's the first game of the year, and you only had 6 penalties. On the flip side, Utah State had 11 penalties. You did have the 1 turnover from Milroe, but as far as performance goes, I'm mostly talking about the starters. But if mentioning Milroe, he looked better. Last year, he couldn't throw. It was pretty awful watching Milroe throw. And this first throw he had, I think it was a screen. I think the first throw he had was the screen pass for a touchdown. That didn't look too good either. He underthrew it, but there was just no Aggies in the way. But he looked better. Ty Simpson got in there and threw one pass. I mean, what are you gonna judge from that? But as far as the team goes, as far as the game goes, defensively, you pitch a shutout. Hard to do against, and it's hard to do against air. The only on the field, it was pretty great performance. Now, the talking point out of this game is Tyler Harrell's on the sidelines in a walking boot. JoJo Early's on the sidelines with a walking boot. Where does that leave the Alabama receiving core that was already unproven coming into the year? That was what we were all worried about their chances repeating. We knew Bryce Young was probably going to be amazing again. Jahmyr Gibbs, I don't know how many of you watched Georgia Tech football. I watched a couple games. I'm not going to proclaim to be an expert on the team in Atlanta. He carried that team they had 3 wins. 2 of them were to Jahmyr Gibbs, which as a running back is tough to do. But they brought in Jermaine Burton. Some of these other guys were going to have to step up. Trayshawn Holton had a good night. Apprentice had a good night. Jermaine Burton came in, played solidly. Those are the type of guys that are going to have to step up if Alabama wants to get back to the national championship. There's a tough schedule ahead. There's not even really a tough schedule, but there's some games that they have that are interesting. They go to Arkansas. That place is going to be nuts for that game. It was a good crowd today for the Razorbacks against Cincinnati. I can only imagine a night game or a 2:30 kick on CBS against Alabama is going to look like. I love this dog. He's just a little goofy. What you're hearing is this dog playing with like a bottle cap. He has all the toys in the world he could possibly want, but he plays with the bottle cap. I don't get it. They go to Texas next week. Truth be told, that shouldn't be much of an issue. Vanderbilt, that shouldn't be an issue. At Arkansas, that's going to be a tough one. We can talk about their performance a little bit later. Texas A&M at home. Texas A&M fans were already calling for Haynes King to be benched. They go to Tennessee. That place could be rocking. Mississippi State at home, at LSU, at Mississippi State, or at Ole Miss, Austin Peay, and then Auburn. So there's some trip. This isn't like a soft schedule for the Crimson Tide. And with a performance tonight, like let's say they would have won like 38-13, but you could tell there were still some holes. We would have had some issues. There'd been a lot more to talk about when it comes to this game. If the running game still wasn't getting going, if the receivers struggled, and it was Bryce Young, kind of like last year, just kind of winging it and hoping Mechie or Jameson Williams was open. That's what a lot of the offense was last year. Got side commentary tonight. But because there wasn't any of those issues, you can only say in so many words, the offense was fantastic tonight. They drove up and down the field when they wanted to, starting units. The receivers looked good. Bryce looked good. He missed on a few throws. But again, it's opening week. It's going to happen. They didn't have to show a lot on film for Texas. They threw pretty standard patterns, pretty standard defenses, nothing really exotic. And that's what you want when you play a team like Utah State week 1. I think people are overlooking, though. I'm seeing on Twitter and throughout the game and just my friends, people are overlooking. Utah State was a good team last year. They returned their quarterback, and I've talked about this a little bit. They won 11 games, hung with some Power 5 teams, beat some Power 5 teams. But they're 1-1 this year. And I had a feeling this game could get kind of ugly. If you watched last week when UConn started to run the ball on them fairly efficiently, there was going to be issues for the Aggies today. Part of it, I think, was they were looking forward to this game. Like, okay, let's give Alabama our best shot. UConn will kind of just roll over and die. And that's not what happened. They played hard, the Aggies, and best of luck to them the rest of the year out west. But they couldn't get anything going. I mean, I'm looking at their drive charts. And it just, 4 plays, 25 yards, punt. 3 plays, 1 yard, punt. 4 plays, 9 yards, turnover on downs. 3 plays, 6 yards, punt. 3 plays, 0 yards, punt. 6 plays, 17 yards, punt. 3 plays, -5 yards, punt. 1 play, 0 yards, but that was the end of the half, so they took a knee, so whatever. But you even get to the second half when backups are starting to play because it's 41-0. 3 plays, -1 yards. 3 plays, 0 yards. 6 plays, 25 yards. 12 plays, 39 yards. That was a bit of a drive there. And then 8 plays, 15 yards. And that, but at that point, they were just driving to run out the clock. So, but congrats to Alabama on the win. They're 1-0. I don't think anybody was really that nervous about this game. I thought there would be some intrigue. Like, I thought maybe Utah State could keep it close for like a quarter, which is enough to rile up Crimson Tide fans. Enough to get them going a little bit, get them a little upset, but nope. Very quickly, it was obvious that just wasn't going to be that way. Bryce Young looked great. CJ Stroud didn't look that good tonight, so Bryce Young takes an early lead in the Heisman between those two. Your leader in the clubhouse might be Stetson Bennett. We can talk about that in a little bit. He was awesome today. Good for him. Don't tell anybody I said that. But yeah, leave your comments, questions, anything you want to talk about with Alabama just absolutely bludgeoning Utah State. It was bludgeoning. It was the kind of game you would think Nebraska would play against North Dakota. But they didn't. Speaking of other SEC teams, we can whip around a little bit. Give a little update for those of you watching at home or on the road or in your car or wherever. Florida pulled the upset. Go over to the Florida guys to watch that reaction. Holy hell, what a game. Kentucky beat Ohio. Vanderbilt put up 42 against Elon. They gave up 31, though. That's not good. Vanderbilt, how many yards did you give up to Elon? 495. Okay. Holy cow. And South Carolina beat Georgia State. So nothing too pressing in the SEC today. South Carolina trailed for a little bit to Georgia State, but they rebounded and they looked fine. So not a lot of, and then the other games, Ball State got crushed by Tennessee, Mizzou crushed Louisiana Tech. So nothing crazy, nothing out of this world except for Florida in the SEC, but sometimes that's a good thing because you go into next week and Alabama heads to Texas. South Carolina plays Arkansas, who I didn't mention. They beat Cincinnati. Good game. It's a game both teams can probably come out of saying we should have played a lot better. Both really stunk. Wake Forest goes to Vanderbilt, so Vanderbilt's got a big game. These are all at 11 a.m. What are we doing? Mizzou plays Kansas State. Appalachian State, who just put up 61 points on North Carolina, probably should have won. in the game of the day. The goofiest game of the day. Florida-Utah was probably the game of the day. Tennessee goes to Pitt. Georgia gets a week off. They play Samford, so they played a tough game today. Well, tough on paper. Kentucky heads to Florida. Ole Miss gets another cupcake. Auburn gets another cupcake. LSU gets a cupcake, but they get Florida State tomorrow. And then Mississippi State heads to a much improved Arizona team, so which they should win by 40, but still. So this week, kind of an easy week for teams not named. Florida, LSU, but we'll see how they do. Arkansas. It's kind of how you want it in week one. If I'm being honest, I'm sure coaches prefer kind of that tune-up game before they get into the grind of a long conference schedule, the grind of a tough DodCon, like in Alabama versus Texas, which, again, tough. But what do you guys think of this game? What do you guys think of Alabama's chances this season to make it back, not only to the playoff, make it to the national championship game, and maybe get some revenge? Because after one day, Georgia and Alabama look like the two best teams once again. And I'm going a long diatribe about this expanded playoff, and I hate it, to be quite frank. But and if you disagree with me, feel free to leave a comment. But I think it's quite clear that we have two elite teams. Ohio State didn't look horrible. They looked better defensively. But how much of that is playing a quarterback? I don't think that's very good. But they're a team that can move into that stratosphere, give them time, see how they look against the rest of their schedule. But not after today. They really struggled offensively. We might have overrated them. No offense, Mark, if you're watching, basing them off a game where they played a Utah team playing like running backs and walk-ons in the secondary. Like, oh, gee, I wonder why JSN's open all the time. But they could sneak in there. And somebody else might. Michigan might. Whoever. But for right now, it's clear it's two teams. All right, we got a comment from Wallace. Bama's offensive line needs some work, and their running needs work too. You know what? I'm trying to think how I want to phrase this. I thought their running game looks better now than it did at this point last year. Let me pull up the stats real quick. Because it's better for me if I have the stats in front of me. I don't remember what Alabama looked like against Utah. Or against Miami, excuse me. Miami, 12 carries, 60 yards. McClellan had 9 carries for 36 yards. That's slightly better. Then against like Mercer, 10 carries for 70 yards, but nothing explosive in the running game. Tonight they had some explosiveness, and also another comment. QB can't be your leading rusher. He can if he breaks off a couple of explosive ones. I would agree with you if it was like Bryce Young carried the ball 13 times for 92 yards and was a leading rusher. I think I agree with you on that. There are some teams that were able to pull it off, like think of like Mississippi State, Dak Prescott. But when it's all explosive runs, it wasn't like he was taking shots, running 5 yards, taking a hit, and sliding down. I wish I could find a chart with all of his runs tonight, but they were all long as 63. So 4 other carries went for 37 yards. It wasn't like he was still almost averaging 10 yards a run. No, I think your QB being your leading rusher, as long as it's nothing crazy, is fine. Plus, Jahmyr Gibbs probably beats him out if he gets 2 more carries. So, what's 53 minus? But I will agree, things always need fine-tuning after 1 week. Jahmyr Gibbs, outside of his big run, only averaged about 4 yards per carry. Not spectacular, but I think it'll get better. He's the thing that Alabama was missing last year. I know, I just said that. The thing Alabama was missing last year, it wasn't that their running game couldn't be effective. It was they didn't have any explosiveness in the run game. God bless Brian Robinson Jr. But he just didn't provide. Like you weren't worried when Brian Robinson took the ball. Excuse you. When Brian Robinson took the ball, that he was going to break off like a 40-yard run. Where Jahmyr Gibbs, you definitely feel like he could break a 40-yard run. He could definitely break a 40-yard run at any point. The O-line's going to need some work. I'm doing a thing here. Do you need to go outside? Can you wait like 20 minutes, 30 minutes? Maybe longer? Some of these good people? No, we're not going to do that. I agree. I think after one day, it's Alabama and Georgia are clearly the two best teams, which you can like. You don't have to like it, but thank goodness we're getting a 12-team playoff, even though 12 teams have never, ever been national title contenders. But yeah, Wallace has been leaving some great comments. I see other people are in here. What do you guys think of tonight's game? What do you think around the SEC? What are Alabama's chances of repeating as SEC champions? Because they did win the SEC last year, just not the national championship. Drop a comment, leave a like, subscribe to the channels. Not only this channel, if you're watching on Voice of College Football Alabama or Voice of College Football SEC, subscribe to the main channel. Mark does a lot of great work. A lot of people do a lot of great work. We have channels for freaking everybody, except Mizzou. West Virginia, USC, and I say West Virginia because that was the one I was looking at, but USC, Nebraska, Ohio State, Florida, LSU, everybody under the sun, we have videos for, and we have analysis for, and we have people who are passionate about college football, bringing it all to you, post-game reactions, pre-game, analysis, talk, whatever you want, folks. I mean, maybe not from me. I'm kind of busy, but I love doing these post-game shows. And I'll do more. I'll do more videos. I'm not selfish. Just when I can. I'll probably do a pre-game video for Texas because that is a big game. I think Alabama's going to kill Texas. All right. Let's look at some comments. We got some comments from other SEC fans because we are on the Voice of College Football SEC channel. So Rest gave the Utes every chance to win. We still pulled off. You guys absolutely did pull that game off. That was with the way college football is moving, and you can like it, you can dislike it. I don't care. We're not going to get games like Utah, Florida every year. Enjoy them while we get them. And that was one hell of a football game. Anthony Richardson, welcome to superstardom, my friend. Oh, man. I think we will beat Bama. Are you a Georgia fan, Wallace? Because if you are, you guys looked really good today. But we will beat Bama. So you're not a Bama fan. That's fine. That's great. Welcome, everybody. I don't care who you root for. If there's any Utah State fans, welcome to the show. Defense was dominant. They absolutely were. Like I said, there's no such thing as a perfect performance in college football. There just isn't. But holding a pretty good Utah State team to 100-something yards, 136 yards, pretty dang good. Okay, you are a Georgia fan. That's fine. You guys looked, holy hell, that was dominant tonight. I thought you guys would kill No Bix. I mean, Oregon's talented, but I don't think they're that. Like, I don't think they would. I didn't think they would compete with Georgia over the full over the length of a game. I thought maybe it'd be a game at half and Georgia would kind of pull away and it would be like a 38-20, 38-17 kind of game. Boy, was I wrong. That thing wasn't close after a drive. Stetson Bennett, welcome to the Heisman race. I mean, he wasn't great. Stetson was good last year. You don't lead the nation in passer rating without being good. And he was great in a few games. He looked disgusting today. And if Stetson Bennett's going to be disgusting and that defense is still going to be incredible, yeah, they're, like I've said a couple times now, after 1 week, and again, it's only 1 week, things change. It's Alabama, it's Georgia. Ohio State might come up. They didn't look great tonight, but they were playing a top 5 team. And I think Notre Dame proved themselves. Maybe they're not top 5, but they are definitely a top 10 team. Going into the shoe like that. And I just think they need a QB. They need their generational QB. That's where they're at. Clemson, they were a really good team for a while, and then they got their generational QB, and they won a national championship, and they got Trevor Lawrence, and teams like that need a QB, and their QB's just not. He's just not that guy. He looked fine in the first half, really struggled in the second half. He's just not that guy. Walking home from the swamp in Gainesville is absolutely – I am sure it is. Congrats to you guys. That was an incredible one. That's an awesome Utah team. That's an awesome Utah team, and they almost pulled it out. They're probably going to win the Pac-12. They're probably going to win the Pac-12. That's a really, really good Utah team. And, Florida was impressive tonight. I still don't know quite what to expect from them this year. Just because you listen to any Utah or any piece about Florida, they talk about how the depth, it's just not there right yet. Their starters are awesome, which it's Florida. Their starters are going to be awesome. But if there's any injuries, it's going to sting. And so who knows where that will leave Florida 2 months from now, even maybe a month from now when we get into October. So I don't quite know what to expect from Florida, if they're a team that could compete for second in the SEC East, or if they're kind of where I think they are, which is like third, fourth, depending on their game against Kentucky next week. Maybe second. I don't quite know. 2 through 5 in the SEC, or 2 through 4 in the SEC East, between Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky is just kind of a mess. It's kind of like the SEC West after Alabama. There's so many directions that thing could go. Yeah, man, congrats to the Gators. That was a hell of a football game. It's what we love about this sport, man. And as it becomes more focused on just winning a national championship and not just the fun of and it becomes a non-zero sum of championship or nothing, these kind of games go away. But games like Pitt, West Virginia go away. But while they're here, man, they're fun to watch. So congrats to the Gators. Should be a fun one in November. Because Anthony Richardson, he got thrown in. He wasn't ready last year. And there's other channels that have talked about this. He wasn't ready for that game in Jacksonville. He just wasn't ready. He wasn't ready to do Dan Mullen's system. Players had started tuning out Dan Mullen. Georgia was an unbelievable defense, obviously. He wasn't ready for that game. He was ready tonight, and he showed it. And this was his big announcement to the world, like, hey, I'm here. Florida's got a quarterback. And what do you know? I mean, all offseason I spent making fun of people because they kept comparing Anthony Richardson to Cam Newton. And I was like, guys, relax. No one's going to be Cam. And he's not Cam, but pretty damn good. Pretty damn good. Anyway, Alabama, they played a Mountain West school. named Utah State, an 11-win team from last year, finished in the top 25. If you didn't know, finished 24th in the poll for winning the Mountain West. And Alabama absolutely hammered them. Absolutely hammered them. I absolutely should have won. Sorry, got something. So what left is there to discuss about today's games? Vanderbilt's 2-0 with Wake Forest coming to town. A Wake Forest team missing their starting quarterback. Could Vanderbilt be 4-0 before playing Alabama? And if they are, is a offensive lineman going to talk trash to Alabama? What was the score of that game? 69-0? 66-0? That was so. You come to our house, we'll show you how to play. 2-0. Got Wake Forest coming into town. Alabama's 1-0. Head to Texas next week. Leave a comment. Subscribe. What do you guys? Are you guys excited for this game in Austin? I don't know how to feel about it because it'll be cool seeing the Longhorn helmet and the Alabama helmet on the field. That part will be cool as hell. But if you took the logos off the helmet and you just put these two teams against each other, I don't know if I'm excited to see that. Plus, whose bright idea at Fox was it to put a game between Alabama and Texas at 11 a.m. in Austin? That turf is going to be sweltering. What are you thinking? Plus, there's like 10 other games at 11 a.m. next week. Let me pull this up real quick. Like, what are we doing here? Come on, load, you silly thing. Next week, just in the SEC at 11 a.m., we have Alabama, Texas. Why is that game at 11 a.m.? I know, Fox. You also have South Carolina at Arkansas. Interesting game. Arkansas probably wins that one, but it's an interesting game. Wake Forest at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's 2-0, have scored 105 points in 2 games. Wake Forest, not exactly stout defensively, and is going to be missing their starting quarterback. That's at 11 a.m. Kansas State hosts Mizzou on ESPN2. Interesting game. 2 former Big 12 rivals. Mizzou looked pretty good in their opener. Kansas State looked really good in their opener. That's an interesting game. Not everybody's cup of tea, but it's an interesting game. And then around the country, okay, that might be it around the country. what do we like? What are the best games the rest of the day? Tennessee at Pitt, Kentucky at Florida. The best game outside of that group of 11 a.m.ers is probably BYU hosting Baylor. That's a good one. Boston College, Virginia Tech. Boston College lost to Rutgers today. So, that could have been interesting. And Virginia Tech lost to Old Dominion. Good Lord. Arizona State goes to Oklahoma State. Like, there's just not, it's not a great slate next week, except at 11 a.m. So if you want to go out and party on a college football Saturday, Zach Ramilius is telling you do it next week. Because next week's nightcap, not that great outside of BYU Baylor. Alabama wins 55-0, off to a great start in their first game of the 2022 season. It's good to be back, folks. Not going to lie. How did you all feel about the first week of college football? A few great games. Florida, Utah, great game. Appalachian State, North Carolina, awesome game. East Carolina, North Carolina State, great game. North Carolina was the state to be in apparently today. Georgia hammering Oregon. Not a great game, but an interesting watch for a little bit. Notre Dame hung around with Ohio State. I didn't think that would happen. And then you had people getting mad at Texas A&M, where they want to bench Haynes King. And we're missing the greatest game of all. Classic Big Ten football. Iowa 7 with 2 safeties and a field goal beat the Jackrabbits. I watched all that game and just was cracking up with people I was watching it with. Because I'm like, I've never seen this level. Could you, watch Alabama play football or watch Ole Miss or one of these other teams that in the SEC that are incredible. Watch them, watch Arkansas, Ole Miss, Alabama, Tennessee, even Mississippi State. Watch these teams run offense and then watch Iowa. And you're just they're playing the same dang sport. I don't believe you. I do not believe you. How is that possible? I'll tell you how. Because Iowa's boring. You heard it from me. Iowa's boring. They always will be because Brian Ferentz will be the next head coach. But we're not here to talk about Iowa. We're here to talk about the SEC. And as we wrap up the show, I just want to say thank you guys for tuning in. If you're in Gainesville, like our friend Tie-Dye Eli was, party responsibly, but party hard. Enjoy it. You beat a top 10 team at home. Enjoy it. Alabama fans, enjoy it. It's not often you beat Oregon State. Looks pretty good. It's not often you beat a team by 55. It's even rare you shut them out. Enjoy it. And all of you, it's crazy. App State had 40 points in the fourth quarter and lost. That's how nuts that game was. 40 points in the fourth quarter and lost. And then at East Carolina, you had the inexplicable coaching by Mike Houston. And this is the last thing I'll touch on before I'm going to get out of here. But your kid just missed an extra point to tie it at 21 with 3 minutes left. They get the ball back, and you play for a 40-yarder? You didn't just we tried and we couldn't move the ball, ended up with a 40-yarder. They played for a 40-yarder. They sat on the ball, ran it. Inexplicable coaching. I hate when teams do that in college, where no kicker outside of the one at Iowa State, Mizzou. Mizzou's got a good kicker. And apparently Utah. And Utah's got a good kicker too. Besides those teams, nobody's got good kickers. What were they thinking? And it's fun to end this conversation about SEC football. More importantly, Alabama's 55-0 win over Utah State. Bryce Young, back-to-back Heisman campaign, starts off strong. 6 touchdowns tonight. Hey, 5. He just looks so in control. It's just awesome to watch. 5 passing, 1 rushing touchdown. Thank you all for tuning in. Thanks, Mark, if you're watching this, for letting me do this again this year. We'll be back next week after Alabama, Texas. Ambitious is the word I'm looking for, of ESPN to continue to schedule college football in 3-hour windows when games are increasingly going to 3.5 hours. But, that game will probably go so we'll be here at 3. We'll go for an hour or so, talk about the game, break it down, see how Quinn Ewers does, how's Bryce Young do. It'll be fun, and I expect all of you to come back. I appreciate it, Wallace. Thanks for coming out tonight. Thanks to all of you. Man, and your Bulldogs, we barely touched on them because like it with Alabama, what do you talk about? You just crushed Oregon. You made the Oregon Ducks and your former defensive coordinator look pathetic. which is hard to do. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Subscribe to this channel, whether you're watching at Voice of College Football SEC, Voice of College Football Alabama. I can see who's on which channel. I see the viewer counts, and I know the breakdown. I can see it. Subscribe. Like the video. Subscribe to all our channels. So many people putting in great work. So many people putting in content, hard work, their passion, and they just want to talk to you guys. That's all. And have you guys talk to them, give them feedback, give them your thoughts, opinions. Very casual setting. Good Lord, could you imagine if I sat here and was just like, Alabama beat Utah State 55-0, Bryce Young, and I just read stats? That'd be boring. And some of you probably already think I'm boring. And Oregon State forces a fumble. So, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll be back next week. Roll Tide, 55-0 over the Utah State Aggies. Have a good night.